instead of paying the playground company. And in the middle of February, when it was 30 degrees outside, we built a playground with volunteers over 2 days and two paid uh, lead guys that were there for the first day, and that saved us $40,000 a playground. And now we have this really awesome playground for the ages. It's absolutely stunning, and it's under a covered court that was getting very little use. So it's dry when it rains, which is all school year, and we've got artificial turf with the 3 inches of foam under it, and it is just it's amazing. So that's been on my plate. Anybody else?
Yeah, we had, our school was taking a break last week, so we dug out our old school redneck playgrounds. You know, we don't have the fancy stuff like Seattle does up there. So we dug out probably, I think I calculated 30 tons of mud because the rain had not stopped for like 10 days, and dug that entire playground out. It's like 120 foot by 30 foot. And put all fresh new cypress mulch in that while the school was out.
I know Elson's embarking on a wet project, huh?
Yeah, we're about to embark upon a waterproofing project in our building on our basement level. We get some breaching of water when we get heavy rains. It's been happening for maybe 3 years, but it's gotten to a point now where we want to mitigate that. We've got some bids, but the bids are sort of all over the place. We've got a low bid of like 50 and a high bid of like 200,000. So we're doing some mitigating of those bids. But as part of that project as well, we're going to be, since we're not in our building yet, in terms of services, we're going to be doing some outside maintenance and some painting of areas that need to be redone. We've got a good set of steps that needs to be redone on one of our sanctuaries outside. So those kind of projects that can be done much more easily without people coming in and out of the building on a regular basis. So we're going to try to take advantage of this time frame.
I can tell you another project that I would recommend each of you try if you've not done it yet is we buy a cheap, very cheap webcam, and they've finally come back on the market. There was a while you couldn't buy webcams. And you set that on top of like a 40-inch television that you buy the additional TV legs for that go on a TV cart. You put a cheap TV cart together, and you buy one of these little miniature PCs to go on that cart, and you convert that cart to a Zoom cart, and that webcam on there. And then you buy a little wireless keyboard or a keyboard with just a standard cable. And in some cases, we bought a professional little miniature conference mic about yay big, with an extended USB cable. And I was telling Frank about this while we were up there in Chicago. I now have 6 of these, and we roll these around. So right now we have 7 faith groups on Sunday that want to Zoom during their faith groups. And so in a couple of cases, we've even run a hard wire to that classroom location so that there's no problem with Wi-Fi. And these are used for the staff. We'll take them to any room in the building. We'll try to pick our biggest rooms, like if people want to separate for COVID. We just roll one of these Zoom carts in there. And one of them is a 65-inch touchscreen that we had gotten donated during a new copier contract. And that one is all wireless and touchscreen. But for most of them, it's just a cheap TV cart. You pop a webcam on the top, and some of these little miniature PCs with an HDMI cable and a little keyboard, and you've got a Zoom cart immediately. And so I now have 4 that are every Sunday, and I'm getting ready to put together 2 more. And I have built these for other facilities as well. Just for about, if you want to go all in, cart, TV, mini PC, webcam, wireless keyboard, you're still in it for only about $1,100.
Chris, can you send a link for the cams that you're using?
Yeah, I just got another one in today, and it's whatever Amazon has cheap.
Okay.
That's got good reviews. It doesn't have to be fancy. You really want the ones with 2 mics to help cut out some of that mic noise. And you want to go ahead and get one that does 1080 if you need it. The only last concern when it comes to the cam is it wide angle or not? So it's the type of conference room you're putting it in. Do you want 110 degrees or do you just want like a 95 degree? And that's some concerns there is the mic. But if you do HDMI cable, then the TV is your speakers. So the mic and the speakers really work well together on that cart. And if you start having any issues with that feedback, then you get that additional conference mic that points away from the TV. And I can send you a mock-up of one.
Yeah, we'll have to set some of those up before conference.
Yeah, and we're doing something kind of similar to that. We've taken our check-in tablets that were on a stand, which have a camera on them, and we've taken them. And when youth group meets, we have a lot of the youth group in the room live, but then we have other students that are remote, and we put their face and Zoom on the check-in stand, which is a stand and a small tablet, and then we can hang a shirt on a hanger on the stand, and it looks like the person is actually in the room with the rest of the kids. And now we only have eight check-in stands, so we're a little limited to how many kids we can have remotely, but it's kind of neat and it works kind of good. It's a little bit more expensive because the tablets are $400 or whatever, but it's kind of unique.
Another project that we're having to work on to answer Patrick's question there is that we're going to try to launch a Saturday night worship. We did it once before about 8 years ago, but we're going to go all in this time, faith groups on Saturday night. And that's what's led to the additional Zoom cart needs. We sent a survey out to all faith group leaders, and there were 7 different faith groups doing Zoom on Sunday mornings. And I don't even think our faith group leader pastor knew that. He assumed it was only 3. So it's a lot of room reconfiguration. We're going to try to bring the children back this month and start doing full children's ministry. And so I'm trying to get ahead of all the room changes necessary to change from a COVID mode a lot closer to a normal mode. Not completely normal yet, but we're starting to move in that direction.
I can back up on that, Chris. We have been doing live worship now for quite a while. And of course, our school's been open since September. We've still been limited to 25% capacity, but we're getting easily 200 folks in a service and been able to maintain school. But we're slowly moving into that, hey, what can we do that's post-COVID or post-vaccination? And as people are a little bit more comfortable going out, and we have rolled in a limited children's ministry during one of our service times on Sunday. We're trying to come up with some creative things that we can do for Easter, because last year Easter was where everybody just felt like it was a complete bust, where we'd just been shut down. And so we're just trying to find some ways. We're going to do a Good Friday, kind of a reflective service for anybody that wants to come in throughout the day. We'll kind of be on spring break then, so we don't have the mixing of the school students and the other folks. So we're slowly moving in that direction, and I'm hopeful that everyone else can be too.
So we've been doing service since last June and doing children's ministry since September, and everything's been wide open as far as that goes. Of course, we're limited in our numbers, but the thing that's been really amazing here is they actually launched a new campus last year amidst COVID. So initially they were meeting in hotels, and we just bought a building. So we actually started renovation Saturday. We started demo work so we can get them temporary worship space for Good Friday, which is kind of short notice, but we told them it's not going to be painted and pristine. It'll be dirty and construction site, and they're just happy to be in the building and have their own space. So God's been good. It's amazing that they actually launched a new campus amidst COVID, which is really crazy.
I saw Leon's hand up there.
Yes, this is Leon Mack from the Sterling House, all those I haven't met. We haven't started our service back yet. We're still on this project of October 22nd, October the 4th, this year, the 22nd of October. We're planning on coming back. But we just been still doing services online, devotions online, and Wednesday night Bible study online. So far, it's been pretty good. We still have our daycare open, and it's going pretty good. Still down a lot, but the things that we're trying to do now is get ready for our service on Easter. We're gonna do a parking lot service. We did it for our anniversary back in October of last year. So we're gonna do another parking lot service before we open up again. It's nobody's really comfortable right now in our congregation to come back yet. So we just trusting God that He'll have us back there by our 22nd anniversary.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, Leon. And listen, if so, Patrick and and Lee and myself, we can't see everyone on the same screen. So if you've got a question or want to ring in, please raise your hand with using the reaction button from the bottom, so we can see you on maybe the second screen. But to Leon's point, we did some parking lot as well, and that helped us get back in that direction. So good. And continuing this thought of what projects are you working on, our lead pastor said, let's grab a hold of the benefits or the positives or the good things that COVID has sort of pushed people in direction of. And I would say we had a funeral here yesterday where we tried this new model where people walk in the front side door of the worship center, they walk straight through for the viewing and walk out the back of the worship center straight through, maintaining social distance, and walk back out to the parking lot. And then if you want to come in, you had to check in through the lobby. And then we live stream that. Now that we've got enough tools to do a really good live stream, we had over 5,000 people on the live stream watching that funeral. So we're trying to embrace some of the pros and the good things that COVID has done to churches. And I would encourage you guys to do that. And one other one would be on the answer to projects that Patrick's talking about, is we put together another classroom, reconfigured it as a counseling room. And so with all the stress and people out of jobs and in the weird relationships and fear of COVID and things like that, we've had a lot of increase in the need for counseling. And so having another counseling room in your space where it's just one or two people who can social distance is maybe a better model or something that you can leverage and take advantage of.
We're also starting on a building envelope water mitigation issue. We have a building that's 20 years old that was our temporary sanctuary. Built a new sanctuary 2 years ago. So looking at maybe doing some remodeling, but we got to get the stucco, water's coming through the stucco somewhere or whatever. So I'm entertaining bids right now to get that all dealt with so that we have a dry building if we're going to do any remodeling in it.
Hey, Matt Dorn has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm right now just starting actually tonight. We're starting to pull wires for new controls for all of our HVAC. So we're at that age with some of our equipment. We're 19 years old on some rooftop units, so we're definitely on borrowed time. But the controls are no longer working with today's technology, and so we're doing some control updates back to old rooftop units. So it's going to be interesting, but we're pulling about 24,000 feet of wire through the building, getting that ready to go. So it's going to be some extras in order to handle the old technology, but get ready for the new technology. So when we drop a new rooftop unit in, we're not, pulling out and throwing away brand new controllers. So we've got a Siemens product here. So it's going to be a fun one. The local contractor is excited to kind of try this as well, because there's lots of different buildings about our age that are looking at the same thing. And so they're going to try us as kind of a guinea pig. So we're excited about getting control of some of our stuff again. It's been a rough 6 months of COVID. We're all trying to increase our dampers. So now we're going up there and we're cranking them by hand and, shutting them back off again. So I can't wait to get that fixed and get it up and running again.
To hear you say that, I'm so thankful I upgraded mine in September for that, what I call COVID compliance. I just hit a button and it all happens magically.
You just hit well, I'm very happy for you, Pat. Yeah.
Someday I'll be
there.
that way. Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah.
Who knew that we'd be doing that? We'd be like throwing energy savings out the window. Like, hey,
yeah,
it's more important.
It's definitely changed our electric bill and our gas bill. I've seen that significantly. So
Yeah,
Yep.
we have too. Hey, I thought I saw Pete Dragolowski had his hand up earlier, or maybe that was because he was next to Leon. No, he's shaking his head now. Okay. And before we get to Rob, I was going to say the question that we were talking about, just stuff on the table, was from Rich Elliott. Did that fill you in? I'd love to hear what's going on with you, Rich.
In regards to fogging, or no, I just posted about fogging earlier. I mean, the things that we're noticing right now, we've been active with services, but so much of the building has experienced downtime that we're looking at a lot of plumbing fixtures and things that are not working properly because things are designed to be used. So it's the big challenge for us right now is just trying to make it all the way through areas that we just can't see all the time. Because we find that, buildings wear down whether we're looking at them or whether we're not looking at them. And a lot of things are wearing down. So there's some deferred maintenance just from inactivity. So that's been our big challenge.
If you happen to see the article that came out, I want to say it was in like Church Law and Tax. I got a phone call one day. Hey, can we talk to you about this? And the questions were really directed about how a church can save money during the pandemic. And I'm thinking you were a little late on this one because I got an interview like a month ago. And some of the questions were things like, you should turn your building temperatures down to 45 degrees. Why? I don't live anywhere where I would ever want to have it down to 45 degrees. I can't imagine any of those folks in Texas last month would have wanted their buildings not set to a warmer. But the conversation then enabled me to talk to them about, hey, this is the opportunity that we have to do deferred maintenance that we can't get to because of activity, or to always have eyes on. Don't lock up your facility and walk off and wait until the pandemic is over, because you'll have way more issues than you ever anticipated. I was really glad to see back up on that train of thought from Tim Cool and Cool Solutions. And so it was, I don't know where they were getting there, maybe just from bean counters saying, hey, here's how you can save money, shut off all your heating. But it was really great to be contacted and be able to weigh into what we're all living with, is that our jobs have become, at least in my regard, busier than ever, despite the lessened workload of a normal, whatever normal is. So with that said, I'm curious, because there's a question on here. What does getting back to normal day look like with online services and meetings becoming more normal? And I'm not sure what more normal means. We've settled into a normal for COVID. It's frustrating at times for me because we want to be able to do some things, or I want to do some things safety related that we can't always do because of some of the COVID restrictions that don't allow us to use the buildings in the ways that we'd like to be able to. So I look forward to the end of that, but I also am really glad that we're able to be somewhat open. So I would love to see a show of hands. Who's open and doing stuff currently? That's pretty good. Who is not? Who's shut down? We're not opening again for months until this is gone. Leon, you said October, Leon?
Yes, October.
Wow. Okay.
You mentioned something earlier about a funeral service that y'all had y'all church. Or was somebody mentioned it, that they had a funeral service at their church?
That was Chris.
And Chris, and we had one last month for one of our members that died from COVID, and it was just a memorial, but it was to feel the togetherness of everybody there almost made us want to go back and start church. But we decided we better wait, because it took a lot to get everybody in there with the volunteer. Well, we didn't have that many people in there. We cut the members, the family off to 20, I think it was 30 members of the family could be there. And then we had 20 friends. So it was about 70 people in there all together, along with the choir and pastor and the ushers. But it was great to be back in there. But the fear of the things we had to do to sanitize, to take temperature checks coming in the door, make sure everybody that was on the list was allowed in there, So it was kind of rough doing that. So that's another reason why we just decided we just gonna wait until October to see if we can go back in then.
Is that, I'll just speak to that. Frank, is that a hand up or a clap there, brother?
Hand up. Leon, where are you at?
Louisville, Texas.
Texas. And Texas being open and you guys just feel that need to stay closed. I'm just curious as to what the thinking is, because here I'm in an area where they want to shut everything down still, but the church has decided to be strong and be open, with limitations, of course, everybody wearing masks. I'm just curious what the thinking is behind that. It's just the different.
It's just this is what the other board has decided to do, is to just stay safe, is to just leave it closed until October.
Yeah, a lot of times it's fighting a PR battle. No one wants
Right.
to be the outbreak, and definitely not the local church. You don't want to be responsible for the
Right.
outbreak, and
Yeah.
and you want to definitely submit to your leadership and your elders and honor that. As for the live feed, we switched to Boxcast. Boxcast, you buy a little device, and then you pay an annual fee. And once you have that little Boxcast device and you're licensed with that device, you send a stream to it, and it sends it. So if you can get a camera hooked to it, you've got a live stream, and it's ready to go. And anybody in the church can then find that Boxcast app or go out to that Boxcast loop or website, and then you can use the Boxcast feed on your own website and send people to the link and play it. So that gets you live right away. Then the next steps is, what's the quality level of that? Do you put 3 cameras in the worship center? You need camera operators. Do you have a mixer so you switch between cameras, or do you want to MacGyver it like I do and try to cheat and do something manual? But once you get that little Boxcast device or a live stream device, and I've done it on the cheap in the past, where you just have to have a capture device that can convert a camera to an internet connection, and you can do it all through just a little PC without even having a fancy device. But that gets you live, and to Leon's point, yeah, that koinonia. And so when Leon mentions numbers, for each of us, those numbers might be very different, and maybe we use percentages of our worship volume or capacity. So for instance, we had 310 in that last funeral, but that's less than a third of our worship center. And as Patrick said, they're limited to 25%. So and in our state, Governor Cooper, I think that for a large venue now, we're at 50%. So we could be at 500 in worship if we wanted to. We've limited the chairs in there to only 400 something, and then we limit the attendance to 80% of that. So it feels never too full, and it feels full regardless.
Yeah, let me focus on that a little bit too. That there are a lot of things that obviously we're from different states. Like Frank pointed out, Texas, they're taking heat for opening up wide, and a few other states doing the same thing. I'm in Washington State. That ain't happening. It's a little different than Texas. We've just chosen to do the things that we're required to do in order to continue to do ministry the way we'd like to do ministry. There's a weird one that came along all of a sudden where we've had all of our preaching staff and worship team all masked the whole time. And all of a sudden, whoever's preaching doesn't have to wear a mask. Where's the science in that? I don't get it. There's people sitting right in front, they're wearing masks. It was good, but now they don't have, whoever's talking doesn't have to wear a mask. So that's a weird one. I don't get. I think they're following the political science, not the science. But that said, we all have different things that we have to do. And our school is open and has had 0 cross transmission. That doesn't mean we haven't had cases on staff or in the student body, but they come in and we find out, oh, they got it. So we quarantine them. We quarantine the class for 2 weeks. If you're in close contact, you got to do the things like take your 10 days at home. Those are all real and functional things that we do, whether we agree that they do any good. We take a week after spring break that the kids will all be remote learning, because we know we can't control their actions where they go. And Disneyland might be open by then, and they might all flock down there and then come back and have, and so we want to do what we can to limit the spread. And with that said, we don't, the NACFM doesn't have, and we're not taking a position on, hey, where is this COVID real, or is this, or should your church open and your church not open? That's not our goal. We want to make sure that we can do things and encourage y'all to do, as Chris said, follow the lead of your elders, and to do the things necessary to keep people safe, but also to lessen their anxiety about coming back. And in that regard, we are fully committed to having our conference in June at Frank's Church in Arlington Heights. And we're doing the things we believe are necessary to make sure that we can do that safely. And if people are willing to travel, we sure hope that they're willing to come see us there and be part of that. If that means, hey, you want to go get a vaccine, do your research, make choice. I've gotten a lot of messages about when people found out that I had taken the first vaccine shot, and I'm not committed to it because like, oh, I got to protect myself or protect others. It was more of a, I want to return to normal. And if they give me some little passport that means I can go board a plane, like my TSA pre-check, I'm on board. Let me through. I don't want to quarantine anymore. I don't want to have to wait. And it's just, there's a lot of things that I could bypass if I just got the vaccine. And, so I think my immune system is great as it is. COVID survivor. Frank's got his hand up. He had COVID. Gary had COVID. Mark Slimer had COVID last week. A lot of you've had it. A lot of you've not had extenuating circumstances with it, but it does affect different people different ways. Like I said, my wife's stroke may have been related to COVID. So do your research, pay attention. And if you want somebody to pray with you about these things as you're being asked to do things, you're like, why are we doing this? I'll sign on for that one. I'll pray with you, man. But with that said, also, I'm going to give a reminder to those of you who have not yet renewed your membership. That's important because if you want to go to the conference, you got to take that first step. And the only other thing I see is Johnny, oh, you got a smile, brother. You had a birthday. You're only double nickels. It's not like you're 60.
He's sleeping there like an old man.
Well,
Go
Frank,
ahead.
you got your hand up, brother.
Yeah, I just wanted to, based on what you said, I actually was thinking, I wanted to encourage everybody as far as conference goes. So our board, way back when, decided that they were going to follow the CDC guidelines as much as possible. So the facility is open to classrooms up to 25% of capacity. We have to, sanitize, clean and sanitize, or disinfect is the proper word. We ask people to wear masks into the building and while they're seated. It's not required, but it's strongly requested. And we're following everything that the government in Illinois is asking us to follow. So the building is safe. We've been open for services. So I want to encourage people to come to conference and don't let this stop them. We're doing what the government is asking us to do. And it's allowed us to have 250 members in our congregation every Sunday for 3 different services, actually 4 different services. And we're facilities open to small groups and big meeting groups. So we've been able to do it. And but I would encourage you guys, if you're involved in those discussions, look at what CDC is telling your county, your state to do, and follow those guidelines closer than just the federal guideline, because that's just a general. That's not the end all for everybody. Follow what your local government's telling you to do. You're probably going to get better response from that. But we're safe. So yeah, come to conference. That would be awesome to have everybody here. And we can accommodate you. If we're not all in one room, we'll be in 2 or 3 rooms. I don't care. I'll do what it takes to get everybody in. So we'll make it
Chris can
happen.
bring some of those Zoom machines in.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob Carpenter, you have somebody you'd like to introduce, I believe.
Yeah, I'll do a couple of things. I had my hand up earlier. You guys were talking about projects. One we're looking at for this summer is a on-demand hot water system. We have 6 different building phases to our building. It's not that big a building, but we use every square inch of space in this building because we have a large day school that shares a facility with the church. Like Pat, we've been in session ever since the normal opening of school in August. We've had all the protocols in for COVID we're not aware of any transmission of COVID within the school, even though we've had students get it and even teachers get it. We've always been able to trace it to an outside source. And then there's classes out and all that other kind of stuff, but it can work. And by doing the hot water system, we can generate a little more space for the school. I just wonder if anybody's ever done that. We'll be able to eliminate 5 hot water heaters. It's also going to allow us space to move a transformer 2 that's now in a closet off a classroom. It's very noisy and causes a lot of disturbance. So we'll be doing that this summer. It's kind of a little different than anything we've ever done before.
What's the fuel source, Rob?
Gas. And we'll be able to put it on an outside wall. It's going to be easy to vent and everything. We'll have 2 cascading on-demand heaters. And fortunately, one of the fathers of one of the students in our school actually has this as his business. There's a lot of commercial applications. So he's put together a proposal for us. And of course, we're getting it at a very good price, which is an advantage to us. So after it's in, I probably won't be able to let any of you guys know how it's working because you guys are talking about getting old and I'm getting old too. So this July, I'm going to be retiring. So it's been wonderful to be part of the organization. I still want to stay part of the organization, but I won't be on these calls and stuff. But there's a gentleman sitting behind me named Kim Berry. He's a member of the church here, a wonderful man. And I think he'll become part of NACFM and you all get to know him and enjoy working with him. He has an engineering background. I think it'll be a wonderful asset to the organization.
Very good, very good. Well, welcome aboard. And say his name again.
Ken Berry.
Ken.
It's himself.
Howdy.
Right. Well, on that topic that you brought up on the point of use, who all used a point of use or has point of use in their facility somewhere? Couple of those. I've got several just the electric models, and I've installed electric and gas models and have seen those in use, but not so much in a large commercial facility. We do have a recirc loop on a large water heater.
Yeah, well, we're going to have one loop all the way through the building for hot water that will service all our current hot water. We do have a couple of recirc loops now on the systems we do have, but they don't all interconnect. Basically, each phase of the building wound up with its own hot water system, but that will all change.
You said this, you're gonna put it on the outside of the building?
No, sir. Leon, the 2 units will mount on the inside portion of an outside wall of one of our mechanical rooms.
Oh, okay.
We already have gas there to run a furnace. And because of that, it's going to be easy to vent this system because since it is a gas system, it's going to have to be vented.
Yes. My neighbor has one on the side of his house. And during this storm that we had to come through here, and usually don't have that happen in Texas, it froze up on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I was asking what was it going to be and what kind of climate it is, because if it's on the outside, it will freeze up.
Yeah,
well, we're in St. Louis. Hopefully we'll have a way to drain it.
Yeah, most of the commercial professional ones, you do drain those, and they're actually easier to drain than a typical water heater in that you can get all the water out from the very bottom typically. And you want to remember to do that on those point of use if they're on an exterior wall and you think you're going to be below freezing inside your building.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they allow all kinds of crazy construction stuff down in Texas. You know, plumbing on the outside of your building, electrical box on the outside of the house, no insulation where your sprinklers are located. I heard lots of stories just a couple weeks ago.
We put our water heaters in. We put our water heaters in the attic too. So.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Well, let's see. If we have more questions. How are churches' seating capacities open up during post-COVID? And what are your distances? Have they changed? Our distances have not changed. We're still keeping, as I set up chairs in the auditorium, I do a wingspan that's pretty close to 6 feet. So we do sets of 2, 3, 4, 5 randomly in the auditorium, and we set up just over 200 chairs. And based on our square footage, our occupancy would probably allow us to have about 380, but we're not getting that many registrants, so we don't overdo it. And then chairs are stacked on side, we can easily pull down more. Randy.
Yeah, I got a question about how you're doing that. Are you each week based on registration, like customizing your chair? Are you got a family of 3? Here's a 3 set. You got a family of 2. Here's a 2 set. Or are you just randomly doing it and hoping it works out?
I toyed with that idea, but we have 2 service times, so it would require juggling those pieces around. So what I did, I just looked at what kind of groupings we're registering and kind of averaged it out and said, you know what, we do have people that are bringing 4 and 5 people, so let's provide for them. And then anybody else, because it's just linked together chairs. So if you get in and there's not a group of 5, but there's a group of 2 and a group of 3, we just bring them together. We don't have normal aisleways anymore. It's so random to keep the 6 foot spread both in all directions. So I've got a couple of guys that do a really good job of setting it up on Saturdays, and then they break it down on Sunday afternoon and set it up again for, we use our auditorium for our before and after school care right now. We don't like to do that, but it's the only way we can keep the social distancing. So all the chairs come up and a bunch of round tables go down, and the kids from each class. So every class in our school is its own cohort. So we want to keep those before and after kids from each class in their own area within the worship center. It's insane. And when I walk in there, they all look like they're playing with each other anyway, but this is what we have to do in order to be able to stay open. So every Sunday that gets set back up to this room full of round tables with a couple chairs around them. And then every Friday night it gets converted back.
Corey had his hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I just stuck signs up. Our pews are bolted down. We have about 3,000 seats. So we did every other one. We put up a sign, and so every other row is skipped, which gives us between 5 and 6 feet. So that's what we've done.
So Randy, I think we tried RSVPs, and RSVPs have gotten so bad that it's 50% of the RSVPs that came in actually show up. And those who show up without RSVPing became the other 50%. So what we've switched to now is we're just going to take attendance as you walk in. So that's going to give us our contact tracing. We just take attendance. So I bought some new Microsoft Surfaces right at the door. Ladies, all really nice ladies are going to check you in, and it goes a lot faster. Now we have attendance as well, which has been good for us, and we can more often identify our guests. But what we have done, to what Patrick's talking about, is you know your capacity. Let's say your state or government says 50%, and then you want your auditorium to feel full, and it's going to feel full at 80% seating. So you take what you know full is, and you add that number of chairs, separate them out 6 feet if you can, and then let ushers and members decide where to sit. And so to Patrick's point, we kind of can get rid of aisles at this point, because you're not going to violate any fire code, because you don't need aisles when chairs are so spread apart. So in answer to your question, what we started with was the front of a chair to the front of the next chair was 6 foot apart on day one. Then we got to where we went 5'5". Then we got to where we went 5 foot. Then we're down at 4 foot from the back of one chair to the front of the next chair. But we still limit attendance, meaning we're going to get real scary and stop people from going in there at about 360, and there's 480 chairs in there. We're just going to say, no, we're full. You should have RSVP'd, kind of thing. So if that kind of answers your question, we're maintaining our guidelines, but the chairs we set up in there, actually, the chairs are closer than 6 feet, but people don't sit closer than 6 feet, if that makes sense. And you're almost right at the 6 foot from a person's head when they're sitting.
Yeah, I asked because when we first opened up in August, we were doing something very similar to what Pat was talking about, where we kind of had the random scatter of chairs. And now we've gone back, we just had the Lincoln chairs like you're talking about. Now we've gone back to more traditional aisles, but taking out the middle aisle. So we're, you cut our capacity down to about, there's 234 chairs in the sanctuary. But we do RSVPs, and we have the same situation where, 20% don't show up, but 20% walk in, right? But we call them cards, social distancing cards. They're large card stock, and it has like a clever image on it. And you can get those at the door if you like it. And you put it, when you sit down, you put it in the chairs next to you. And so it reserves chairs for you. And 2 chairs is 6 foot, right? 3 foot chairs. You got 2 chairs for 6 foot. So if everybody does that, then you have it. So those are some of the things that we found that work. But the random chairs, we just couldn't get the capacity number. We were filling up way too quick and having all kinds of issues.
We initially started by using brush fire. We were doing the movie theater, pick your seat, and you get a confirmation. You'd come in, you'd know exactly where to sit down. It just ensured you had a spot. But similar to what you guys are experiencing, we had people that weren't showing up. It wasn't as high as 50%, but we actually just about 3 weeks ago stopped doing that, and we just kept every other row blocked off and let people kind of just socially distance left to right, themselves. And we've had some significant growth in the last 3 weeks. We had about 1,300 people here, I think, this last Sunday. So we're a little bit nervous that we're going to have to ramp up another service. We're going to keep the social distancing just for the fact that the hope is the first thing that we could get rid of for a guideline would be the masks. And I think once the masks come off, people are going to still want the social distancing. So that's what we're hoping, but we'll see what the governor says. He just committed actually this morning to extending that again another 60 days. So we'll probably have masks for a while, but that was kind of the idea. So we're keeping our social distancing, letting people figure it out for themselves left to right, but we are nervous that we're going to end up at capacity and start turning people away pretty quickly here.
Hey, Joe's got his hand up.
Hey, Patrick.
I think we're kind of in a similar situation. We were at 300 attendance for 2 services when we opened in June. So approximately, the first service is always heavier than the second service. But so it was approximately 150 all the way through Thanksgiving. And we had the seating randomly, 2s, 3s, 4s, spaced out 6 feet. Thanksgiving, we took a hit and dropped down to 200, but then for Christmas, we took reservations, and we rearranged the worship center in the groups as close to the reservation family sizes that we received. So after Christmas, we left that arrangement. So we have some as many as 12 or 13, whereas if you get 3 and 3, they can sit on each end of that row, and it's random. You got to stagger your way through. There's no aisle. But now, just recently, over the last 3 weeks, we went from maybe 300 at 2 services. Now we're up to 400, and now it's getting scary because we're starting to look like we're going to be maxed out real quick. For one service, figured it out with 6 foot spacing. We can maybe get 250 in there. And then that's capacity at 6 foot spacing. So we do have overflow in another space. So I expect we'll be going into the student center and using that space for overflow real soon. I'm thinking the max the building's going to be able to hold is 400, and I see us hitting that real soon. So I'm a little concerned about what we're going to do moving forward as things start opening up more, if they continue to open up more.
Patrick, I see Gary Rumser, our president's hopped on. Welcome back. And I think Frank's got his hand up. Let me.
Frank, you got to unmute, brother.
Sorry about that. As we see things opening up, do we think that they're gonna start reducing the restrictions on distancing, or just do we think it's gonna be like, oh, we'll take masks off and that'll be okay? Does anybody have a feel for any of that stuff?
I can tell you what we've done in terms of our academy. We are following the direction of our Washington State Health Department, obviously CDC, but what they call the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. Even though we're a private school, they're the ones setting the pace for what you need to do to have a school open. And considering that none of our public schools are open right now, they're either hybrid or they're all online, and we've been open all year. So we're following what OSPI suggests. And we are just now beginning to tweak things a little bit. So we're now allowing middle school classes to do some switching up amongst classrooms, whereas before they were in a pod and that's where they stayed. And if a specialist came in, like Spanish teacher, they would come in and do their thing. And of course they're at the front of the room, they're behind plexi, and they'd go to room. Well, now we might actually be able to have a classroom where people go in and rotate. And it does not look like science showing that kids are not transmitting this to each other. So we've been able to squeeze desks a little bit closer. We've been able to open up intramural sports like soccer. And when kids are out at recess, they don't always have to have masks on because they're outside, but we keep them in their cohort. So there's still some protections, but the distancing seems to be something that's flexible, I guess. Frank, you've traveled a little bit. How much social distancing is there on a plane? None.
Absolutely none. But the funny thing is that the air in the plane is safer than the air in our buildings, right? Isn't that crazy?
That is
Yeah.
true. That is true.
And listen, Illinois is, as liberal and democratic as they come. So they want to follow the CDC guidelines to the extent of the law as much as they possibly can. But I'm just curious as to what we're seeing, because like in our sanctuary, we have fixed seating. So if they turn around and say, okay, you can open up to 50% capacity instead of 25%, and we end up, but you have to maintain 6 feet and you still have to wear your masks, that's an impossibility for us. So it's just, I'm just curious what the feel is, because if they just allow us to increase our numbers, we're going to increase our numbers, because we're every other road right now, and people space, right? They give their 6 feet between each other themselves. So that's what they're doing. And we've been seeing some good numbers, which is great. And our congregation has really been holding to the registration. If they register, they show up. We don't have too many walk-ins, but the numbers increase, we got to increase services, which is really nuts. It's not a bad thing, but we want more people at church, right?
Yeah, well, if we follow what the state is saying, we could only be at 10% of our occupancy of the space. So we'd only be able to have 90 people in the worship center. But yet we're having 150, well, now up to 200 in the worship center. We have enough room that there's 6 feet space, but according to the state, we shouldn't be, but we're exempt. So, I mean, we're just trying to be open and say, hey, if you're comfortable, come and wear your mask. We'll stay 6 feet apart, and you can come to the building. If you don't, stay home and watch the live stream. And I mean, we averaged 1,500 a weekend for attendance before this. So we're just trying to do the best we can. And you got people on each side of the fence saying we should be closed, saying we should, but we're just doing the best and trying to do what we can.
Yeah, we're kind of the same way here. I mean, we have all pews. Theoretically, we could always have been at 50%.
In a meeting. What can I do for you?
We could have always been at 50%, but with every other pew and spacing people out, we were closer to 25% anyway. So I would hope that we could, my desire would be to keep the masks on and open it up to 100%. That way, at least we can get the bodies in the building, and then people are protected by the masks and the vaccines and whatnot until it calms down. But you know what my opinion gets you? Not a lot.
I see Josh Early's hands up.
Is that Josh? Really?
Yeah, that's me. Can y'all hear me? Right. Yeah, we're getting to the point where, we're still have to maintain the 6 foot distancing, but our attendance is starting to get up to where it's we're having to be really creative because people want to come back to church. And so like even this Sunday, we had to open up some curtains. We had to pull some extra chairs out that we had already prepped just so that we had space for people and to keep them far enough apart where we could meet the state guidelines. One thing that we're starting to see now is we're starting to see a lot of people that are getting the vaccine. So they're starting to come back now because they feel safe. And then we're also seeing some young families one young family that came back this week, they were waiting on their parents to get the vaccine. I mean, they're not afraid of anything, but they were kind of concerned. They didn't want their kids to drag it home to grandpa and grandma and have some issues. Well, it was their first time in church in a year. And so we're really starting to see an influx. So if our state guidelines don't change soon, we're going to kind of be in trouble because we may have to, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to add a service, but we're just going to have to get really creative on how we can fit people in and still maintain that 6 foot distancing. It's a tough one.
Well,
Gonna have
Patrick,
to open up your HVAC, Josh.
Patrick, I think the question that was on the table a second ago was more about, what do we see in the future? Like if we could foretell the future. And I think what we're going to see is that what we have is just a flu on steroids. And if it's just the flu on steroids, then you go by flu guidelines and flu approach. And one of the keys to flu approach is if you're sick, you stay home. You quarantine the sick, not quarantine the healthy. And Patrick said earlier that the NACFM is not going to take a stand on some official science of sorts. That there is science out there. But if it's the flu and it's just the flu on steroids, I mean, more people are dying due to this version of the flu than normal flus. Flu is what it is. So in the past, when people would get vaccinated for the flu, they didn't just go and just get crazy with their bodies because they had the vaccine. It just prevents the opportunity of catching or just reduces the illness caused by flu or the opportunity of catching it at a rate that you would recognize it. And the same is going to be the case with COVID. So I think moving forward, what I'm trying to say is, I believe there's going to be a little more common sense moving forward, that it's going to seem more like what we've seen for the last, our lifetimes when it comes to the flu seasons, and have more of a common sense approach, I pray.
So, Mr. Robinson, you have any words of wisdom for us here? Well, then you're still muted, Gary. Hey, Gary.
Just hold down your space bar if you can't find the mute button. See if that does it for you.
How about that?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got confused on the time and I stepped 1 o'clock Central Time, so I'm an hour behind. The state of Tennessee has a governor that doesn't believe the state or local governments have the authority to limit attendance at churches. So we're trying to maintain as best we can, but our attendance keeps going up. We suggest masks. We do not require them. And we're getting close to normal here at our church. And I'm not saying statewide.
Calvin had his hand up earlier.
Yeah, well, I've been sitting here thinking, all right, do I ever talk here? Well, I'm living in the state of Florida, where DeSantis has put no restrictions anywhere. So we're the devil down here. But so as a church, we can run about 1,800 in our worship center. We had 1,200 last 2 weeks ago for a youth event. We're in pews. We don't have any blocked off. We have one section that says mask only section, and about 10% people wear their masks at church. As a community wise, 46% of the people that have passed away were in nursing homes. We've had quite a few of the staff have gotten it over the time period, but Nothing, no major outbreaks throughout the church. So sometimes I listen to the people and I think, oh crud, we're not putting too much guidelines on it, but yet we're still getting by. We're still having our regular service, I mean, there's very few things that are not happening because of COVID. Now the people are staying away that want to stay away and feel like they're still, immune to, not immune to it, and not, they might, on the elderly side of the population, but even them, they have started coming back with new guidelines, and they wear, their mask more than others, but so.
Well, I may have to come down your way and we can do lunch, man.
All right, Laura Wood has her hand up.
In a restaurant. Laura Wood has her hand up.
I just wanted to, I'm also in Florida, and I wanted to say the same thing as Calvin. We have 6 campuses and we've been open since before June, well, just before July of last year. And our attendance has been growing steadily. We do the same thing. Our various aisles are probably about 3 feet away from each other right now. We started at 6. They've gotten much lower. People have the opportunity to self-space if they so want to do so. We have a mask-only section. We had a large women's conference 2 weekends ago that had 1,200 women here for 2 days. If you want to know the future, I think that that's probably it. Once people are comfortable and they're given the opportunity to do so, they will be back because they want community, and God is going to continue to put his hedge of protection around our churches. And I think that that's what we all should be really thinking about.
Well, thank you for that, Laura. I'm right in agreement on that. Sadly, I'm in an area where we're probably going to be more locked down, more or less, for longer than what I think some of the rest of the country. But it's interesting to look out at our membership base that's spread from corner to corner of the country, and to see how different each state handles it. And yet it seems as though the numbers are kind of, and so that underscores my belief that our immune system is pretty incredible as it stands. Tragic that people die, but people are dying of all kinds of other things too that are off the radar right now. So I just keep praying for folks, and praying for all your churches that the gospel is not hindered through this craziness of this pandemic time that we live in. I know we're in the middle of trying to figure out how to build a permanent studio, because the video production has become such a major part of what we do now. In fact, probably more so than a live worship. And finding space that you can make a studio that isn't going to be interrupted, or that the new cameras we bought aren't going to be messed with or damaged. Or, so lots of questions about that. But things that we probably had looked at long-term future have become very near-term future. And the things that we were looking at before that were near-term future are now longer-term future. Like, we probably will never build another larger worship center. I think online worship is here to stay. People like to worship in their pajamas. People like to worship on their own time frame. And there will be those who come back. There will be those who want that fellowship. I've noticed more people, vendors and whatnot, coming in and actually offering their hand and a handshake now, when for months that didn't happen. It was the little arm bump. And interesting how mask fatigue and just I want to say, what is it? The 1 year anniversary of 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Hello. It just isn't, we're tired. We're all tired. And you walk in a room and you realize you don't have a mask on, you got to find it. And it's just, I long for the day that we can be together and give each other a hug and a handshake, and see each other's smiles, not behind the mask. So, well, I want to honor our time together here. We've crossed over about an hour and 15 minutes. I didn't see any other questions on that we'd had but is there anything else anybody wants to raise while you got us here?
Patrick, I'd like to second what you said about a TV studio. I was informed about 3 weeks ago that our facility department break room, lunchroom, meeting room was going to become the new control center for video editing and splicing. We've been doing live services from both the traditional and the rock and roll service, but they want better quality. And so I guess that is the way it's going to go. There are some people may not come back at all. They really enjoy the online part of that. Initially, our contributions were way down last year when all this first started, but those have rebounded, and we're pretty close to what we were before the pandemic started.
Yeah, and I would second what Gary said. And as facilities managers, I would encourage all of us to be ready to say yes. And I know we say yes to a lot. And but think about how, you know, if the comment that Patrick said, where if everything's going to be pajamas in the future, then we don't need facilities managers. And I don't want that to be the case, not because I don't want a job per se. I'll go wherever the Lord sends me. But how can we say yes to how COVID has changed models? So we did the same thing. Gary said our group wanted a production room where they can do some very professional recordings. So we took over a preschool room. We put a nice wood slat wall in the background. We have bookshelves in one wall. We have that in the other wall. Another wall, we have a map of the world. And then in that room, we've reserved it for special lighting. And we've had some requests about that room. And I need to place those at the top priority of my, they're saying the air noise is too loud in there and things like that. So I've got to remember that should be on my priority list. And another example of that is they took over a small office as the live production suite. So I have to help them. We pulled wire to that room. We mounted a TV on the wall in that room and help them be successful in moving forward with the live streaming and video recording prior to live streaming for other things.
We're doing the exact same thing. We already had a video suite of area where they were doing production, but it has grown so immensely that we're actually looking at potentially building another building and a studio, soundproof studio specifically for that purpose. And you know, I was thinking that in a lot of cases, you know, it's the people who are enjoying worshiping at home in their PJs, as we're saying. But over the past couple of weeks, I've been having conversations with my nephew who works for the sheriff's department, and he can't make it to weekend services. His schedule doesn't make it to weekend services. So I think if we also think about the fact that there is a whole group of people who don't have access to Sunday services because of their work schedules, who now have the ability to participate and feel like they're involved in something live and online because we've gone so far in this last year. So it's a mix of both. There are definitely newer people coming to church who have never come before because of what we've gone through over the course of the year. But there is a whole group of people who want to go to church who can't physically, either physically or, you know, for whatever reason from a work perspective, that we are now so much better serving, you know, because we had to. We had to find a way to serve the people who are home to begin with. So it's just a really unique opportunity to see how our faith and how we provide church is morphing and changing and meeting the masses.
I think Joe had his hand up maybe.
Yeah, I just wanted to say we're really blessed. We just finished a $12 million expansion right before COVID hit. We were only in the new space really for 4 months, but we planned ahead of time for a production room, multiple cameras. So we were really poised and set up for streaming. We did have to add a studio. So we converted some rooms into a studio and pulled wire and did all that. And now we're in the process of just making a sound room as well for audio recordings. But it's been a real robust following online. And, like I said, we're just really blessed to have that infrastructure in place, going into this, that we were able to transition really fairly easily. We've been expanding it since, and it's grown to be really quite a professional job that the guys in the tech team are doing.
I see Tom Senior's either clapping, got his hand up down there.
Yeah, question about opening up a chapter of NACFM locally. Just didn't know if anybody had any paperwork on how they may have started with something, guidelines, how they would start. Right now, I'm just calling churches, trying to get people together to meet so we can get something done locally. But, you know, if there's anything out there information wise that someone can send me, I'd really appreciate that.
Yes, and we do have that. Someone wrote a research paper on that on our website. It's a little tricky because we're not calling them chapters sometimes. Sometimes they're called groups. So you get some confusion in there. You got chapters or groups. They're really the same thing for us. But I'm going to tell you right now, Tom, you're going to do that by you scheduling a day and inviting 1 or 2 other FMs, and make sure that it's legit. You bring the donuts or the brownies. And what most of these groups have done is bring in a sales group or an outside vendor in your area to give a quick presentation, like 30 minutes on a topic. And then you guys have a little round table. And just 2 or 3, that's the start. And then once someone knows it's legit, you showed up and donuts showed up, you're going to get 5 and 6, and eventually it's going to be a group of 25 or more. So there is a research paper on that. I can send you that link. And I see Frank's got his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to that. Our group started 15 years ago, and it was similar to what you're saying, Chris, but what we did is invited guys to our church. So there was 2 or 3 of us. We got together as a church, gave them a tour of the church, talked about our problems, asked them to point out things that they saw, get an extra set of eyes. And that helped that grow, because then they started talking to other guys that they know. Pretty soon we're touring churches. We'd meet for breakfast and then go take a tour of a church. And that's how the group grew to the point where now we're meeting quarterly and doing roundtable discussions and bringing in vendors to buy breakfast. And it's turned out real good. So yeah, it's been a good group, although COVID hit, and I'm hoping that everybody comes back in June for a conference. That's the push right now. But yeah, that's the best way to do it. Just make the phone call.
Hey,
Thank
Tom,
you for your
where
reply,
are you
guys.
located, Tom?
St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay, so we have occasionally requests from vendors who are trying to help push this along. Some of our business members are really, they really want to participate in this realm in the local group thing. If you reach out to Phil Rogers down in Texas, he has expanded that Dallas area group into 3 or 4 times that it's broken off, and now we've got multiple leaders going, and so they can meet in more regional groups around the Dallas area. We've got Pathosands in Florida, and our rep down there is wanting to reach out to the churches in Florida. We're fortunate to have 2 of you on the call here today, but our presence in Florida is pretty weak, and so she's reaching out and trying to find facility managers within Florida that can get together, and she can offer a lunch and a talk and try to bring people together to support one another, and we can link you up and give you ways of connecting to one another through our groups feature on our website. This gives you kind of a one-spot communication place. So there's things going on there. I think Pathosands was also working, and also a roofer from the Dallas area that does work in the Kansas City area. So they were trying to put together a Kansas City group. And I know, Tom, you're not the only one in the St. Louis area. Yeah, Rob's waving at you from across town. So that might be looking at who's on our list and reaching out and putting, just having a lunch together. We do one here in Seattle, hasn't been done in quite a while. And I kind of had spearheaded it way back when Scott Noon was still around, and it's been kind of a pretty loose group for a while now, but we would meet at a church, have a topic, and then we might go to lunch, or we might, somebody might host lunch, and we didn't have a lot of vendor participation, but there's a lot of ways you can do it. But yeah, check out the research paper, because that's one way. And then if you really want to go deep, the research paper by, I'm going to guess it was Keith, he was instrumental back in the NACFM in Minneapolis area. That's like a whole nother NACFM. It's got bylaws and structure, unlike what most of our local groups do. But that's if you really want to go deep.
I appreciate it, guys.
Let me add just quickly as to Patrick's point about helping you with local groups as a part of the NACFM. we can develop on the NACFM's website what's called a group for you, put you as the leader, and then you could use that as a message board to contact those. And you can ask people to join NACFM's website as contact only. You can then add them to your group. They don't get all the resources, but they're able for you to contact them from that group page. And we can build that for you. I started one already called North and South Carolina, which is pretty big and broad because we were just trying to get started over here on this side. But there's probably room to start one just in the Charlotte area, for instance, since there's so many churches. But that we can help you with, as Patrick was saying.
Yeah, one other thing, little snippet from our January board meeting. We are, as a board, looking into creating a position for like groups director, trying to figure out how we could utilize that to grow those local presence and somebody to be a resource for that. Those of us on the board are pretty stretched thin with all the things we have in our regular daily jobs and our current board roles, but and pretty much everything rolls to education because, you know, Chris he gets the IT side, but to have somebody in that role that could shepherd that and could be the main contact would be something we really desire to have. So in the coming months, we'll be trying to figure that out. Well, it looks like we're going to be losing some folks here. We're hitting overtime. I want to thank you all for being here. Those of you that are not members, I encourage you to take a look. We're a good group. You keep coming here. Come see us in June in Chicago. Yeah, it might be outside your comfort zone, but it's going to be a great time. We're really looking forward to being together in person, even if we're all wearing masks. Maybe we'll make up some cool masks for the conference if that looks like it's going to be that way. I've got a mask guy, so that said he could do it. So anything else you got to follow up with, Gary? Unmute, brother.
I saw that Rod Carpenter's retiring in July or June. Want to wish him well, and he's got his replacement already. Was wondering if Ken was already on staff, or that church was thinking far enough ahead to hire someone before you left, Rob.
They call me the apprentice.
He's on board, so it's great. He's a member of the church, which is wonderful. So he already knows our organization.
Great. Well, I do wish you the best.
Thank you, Gary.
Well, Gary, why don't you go ahead and close us out with prayer, my friend?
Be glad to. Lord, I thank you for the day. I thank you for the grace that you've given us. I thank you for this group of godly men and women that are serving you every day in their own ways. I pray that Rod Carpenter will have a wonderful, wonderful long retirement. I pray for Ken Berry that he will fit right in and be able to hit the ground running. Be with us as we do your work this week. Let us be productive. Let us have a little fun. In the sweet name of Jesus, amen.